Great to have you along for the ride. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Really glad to have this man back. Oversight Committee Chair in the House of Representatives, District 1 Republican, great state of Kentucky. It is Jamie Comer. Jamie, how are you? Good to see you.
Good day. New blood in town. That's what we needed.
Man, it's so good. Yesterday, I could not believe how much he got accomplished in one day. And the one part that jumped out at me with now President again Trump in the Oval Office, stopping while he's signing the executive actions, answering questions, being cordial, having a good back and forth, a great dialogue with reporters, some of whom don't like him, some of whom have been very fair with him. But Jamie, you saw a stark difference between 4 years of no access and no transparency and a guy who's willing to talk to the American people, right?
Right. I mean, he's transparent. Just compare that. Just yesterday, Joe Biden pardons his entire family on the way out the door at 11:59 with 1 minute to go, doesn't issue a press release, doesn't answer a question, doesn't give anyone a heads up. And Trump, every single decision he made, he explained. He answered questions. He was transparent. He was a leader. There's no question who's in charge of the country now. It's the president of the United States, Donald Trump. No one knew who was president of the United States for the last 4 years. So it's very refreshing. And I think that, hopefully this will be the trend moving forward, and we'll never have a president as weak and that lacked as much transparency as Joe Biden.
I want to get into those pardons in a moment even deeper, but let me ask you this. Now that he's out, who was running it? Was it Blinken? Was it Sullivan? Was it Obama? Was it the Clintons? Is there a cabal, do you think, Representative, that you've got 5, 6, 7, 8 people at the table? It wasn't. You and I both know, we've known this the whole time. It wasn't Joe Biden.
No, I think that a lot of decisions were made by Blinken that pertain to foreign policy. I think that from a messaging standpoint, I believe that George Soros and his organization was leading the messaging. They were colluding with the White House and the liberal media to indoctrinate and to disinform their viewers on things ranging from Joe Biden's the healthiest president we've ever had to Joe Biden's the most ethical president we've ever had. Obviously, they manipulated the numbers on unemployment. They manipulated the numbers with the FBI on crime. I mean, everything that came out of this administration was not factual. And I think that the Soros entities had a lot to do with that. So, on different issues, it was different people. One thing we know, Joe Biden was not the guy calling the shots.
No, I couldn't agree more. But now that we've seen a 50-year run over for Biden, who I've said this on my show, you and I haven't talked about him personally, but I think Joe Biden's a really bad guy. I think he's always been a bad guy. He's been a liar, a plagiarist. He's been somebody who has been accused of really horrible things with women. We know that he's worth millions and millions of dollars. And as you said, pardon his whole family. They're all worth millions of dollars on your dime and mine and the dime and everybody else who's watching right now, selling influence. So is there a way to avoid the next Joe Biden? Is there a way to avoid allowing somebody to get so overwhelmingly enriched just on the taxpayers and on power that we gave them through votes? Can we see it coming next time, do you think?
Yeah, we're going to have to get rid of the deep state. Because what we found in our investigation of the Bidens over the last year and a half, the Biden influence peddling investigation, is that there were 4 government agencies that knew full well what the Bidens were doing. They were investigating them. It was the Department of Justice in 3 different jurisdictions. You had the FBI, you had the IRS, and you had the Securities and Exchange Commission. All had ongoing investigations of financial corruption by the Bidens. But once you investigated them and you did what I did, you followed the money, you figured out this money wouldn't be happening without Joe Biden. All roads would always lead to Joe Biden.
Yes.
At that point, they would want to interview Joe Biden. That's when the deep state would step in and say, no, stand down. And the statute of limitations would expire. So there are laws in place. There are checks and balances in place. There are government agencies in place that catch this type of behavior. And they caught it on Biden. But for reasons that I believe pertain to Donald Trump, and they didn't want Donald Trump to come back in, they always covered for Joe Biden. And to fix this town, you're going to have to hold those people accountable. Kash Patel is going to have to go in and clean house. Pam Bondi is going to have to go in and clean house. Billy Long at the IRS is going to have to go in and clean house. That's the only way to change this and prevent it from happening in the future.
As we read the Constitution, it's U.S. Representative James Comer. He's the House Oversight Committee Chair. Really appreciate the time and the access. As we read the Constitution, a pardon is very vague. The president seems to have all sorts of power to do pardons. But there's nothing in there that would suggest you do it preemptively. The suggestion is you pardon somebody because they did something or accused of something or found guilty of something that they deserve to be pardoned for or commuted for. These preemptive pardons really showed up when Nixon got a preemptive pardon, but he was already going to be impeached. That was already, the writing was on the wall. With the Biden family, nobody had been charged with anything. I mean, Hunter was, obviously, and then he expunged Hunter's record and pardoned him. But all these pardons yesterday, they were being investigated. You have the guy I'm talking to right now has the information and has the evidence. Was it imminent that those people were going to face your committee and possibly prosecution because now you got the House, you've got the Senate, you've got the presidency, you've got the Supreme Court? Were they going to face the music, and did he just save them all?
Yeah, exactly. He knew he would do that. So what we charged Hunter and Jim on was perjury and lying to Congress from their deposition and transcribed interview. But what we didn't charge them on, because we're really an investigative agency, we're not really, the Department of Justice. We're not the judicial branch. We're the legislative branch. But where our investigation clearly pointed was violations of the Foreign Agents Registration Act, money laundering. You had Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, tax evasion, on much more than what Hunter Biden was charged on. You could even make a RICO argument because this was a very organized crime family. So at the end of the day, there was a whole lot of things. And one thing I said in the investigation, and we were very transparent, we said we found that 10 different Biden family members received direct payments through these influence peddling schemes, including Joe Biden. And the only place in the world the spouses' names were ever mentioned was in the course of our investigation. And when I would do interviews and in a book I wrote, that's the only time the spouses' names were mentioned. And he pardoned them. Even I did not think he would pardon the spouses. I knew he would pardon Jim Biden. Yeah. I thought he might pardon Frank Biden. Right. But I never dreamed he would pardon the sister and their spouses.
And that's and as we're talking about pardons, and I think you agree with me, pardons do play a role in our society. The Constitution put them there for a reason. But again, we've never seen such broad preemptive pardons like this. Is there a congressional challenge that can be made to the idea of a preemptive pardon? Maybe it goes to the Supreme Court and they can decide. Because I never thought it would happen I don't think you thought it would happen like this either.
No, what I fear is going to happen, you're going to have a movement to reform pardon. And that's unfortunate because a pardon's supposed to be the last resort. Right. If someone is found to be innocent after many years, after new information evolved, instead of having to go through the whole court again, the judiciary process again, the pardon would step into play. That's what the pardon process was for. And it was abused by Joe Biden. And of course, the media today, Joe Biden waited. I don't know if he coordinated with Soros or whoever his narrator is on creating all these false narratives. But they waited till the moment they knew the media would then be focused on what Trump had said transparently he was going to do, and that was pardon the January 6th people. So now the media is all about January 6th. If you Google pardon, all that's going to come up is January 6th. Nothing on the Bidens is going to come up in Google. So again, this is what we've dealt with through the whole Biden investigation. Anytime we would find new information, anytime we would find some type of smoking gun, then the media would just all collude and at the same time totally refocus the narrative in a different direction. And that's what happened with these pardons. So the Department of Justice, Pam Bondi, they could challenge this. I certainly hope they do. The ball's in Pam Bondi's court now.
I like to see her do it. You keep bringing up the media. I want to take you back 4 years. There was an allegation that Trump was going to pardon his family, preemptively pardon his sons, his daughters, and everybody. Of course, he didn't do any of it. But you've got this will blow your mind. All of you have seen this out there online today. But I went back and got the original tape. This is Joy Reid interviewing Adam Schiff, who got a preemptive pardon yesterday, by the way, talking about how bad it would be to preemptively pardon people.
Have you ever heard of somebody getting a preemptive pardon who was innocent of all crime? Who's just an innocent person? Have you ever heard of that? Just somebody getting a blanket pardon and they're an innocent person?
But no, I think that in the very few cases where there have been prospective pardons, such as, Ford pardoning Nixon for whatever he may have done during the presidency, there was some idea of the potential criminal liability facing Richard Nixon. Here it's an effort not only to prospectively pardon people for things they have not yet been charged with and may never be charged with. But also, it's the president's own family. It's people that have been covering up for the president in addition to his own family.
Jamie, what am I missing here? They're literally talking about what happened yesterday, but it's 4 years ago when they were trying to pretend like Trump was going to do it, and of course he didn't do it. I never heard any good evidence that he was even thinking about doing it, but they just literally made the case against what Biden did yesterday, but I don't hear a peep today from Schiff, who just got pardoned, nor Joy Reid.
Look, Adam Schiff and Jamie Raskin, I've said this over and over, their hypocrisy knows no bounds. There's no limit to their hypocrisy. And I don't doubt that they were begging whoever's in charge of the White House, because it wasn't Joe Biden, whoever's in charge of the White House to please give them a pardon, because they were afraid they'd be drugged in front of one of these committees or in front of the Department of Justice, whichever, and make them explain some of this information that in their investigations, whether it be the Steele dossier that was false or whether it be some of the January 6th evidence that they destroyed. They're bad people. They led bad investigations that abused their power. When they were in the majority and they had subpoena authority, they abused their power. We've had this one good, straight, transparent, effective investigation of the Biden family. Obviously, they're guilty, or he wouldn't have pardoned the entire family preemptively. Right. Adam Schiff just made that case, and now they don't care. They're like, the reporters that have asked them about it this morning, which are very few, they're saying, we're looking forward. We're not looking back. All they did while Joe Biden was president was look back at Trump. All they did was look back. Now they want to look forward. They want to look forward.
They did it the entire time. And the only people that aren't giving any answers at all are saying this was to protect them from revenge. Cash hasn't said revenge. You haven't said revenge. Hegseth, Bondi, Gabbard, Trump. Nobody has said revenge. All they said, and all you've said consistently to me and anybody else who will listen, is that you just want to check out the evidence and investigate it. If wrongdoing was done, people should be held accountable. Nobody has said revenge. Nobody has said an enemies list. But, Jamie, they somehow are successful with that. Half the country believe there's an enemies list.
Yeah, retaliation. That's the word they're using. That's the word the media is using. Trump going to retaliate against his enemies. All he's done has been retaliated by the deep state. But no, it's not retaliation with Trump. It's accountability. That's what it's about. You can't be in the IRS and know someone owes tens of millions of dollars, but they're politically connected, and turn a blind eye to them, and then go after the poor waitress at Waffle House because she may not have reported $50 in tips.
Right.
I mean, that's what this IRS does. You can't be the Department of Justice and put minorities in prison for having a marijuana joint in states where marijuana is illegal, but let Hunter Biden get away with all the crimes he's gotten away with over the last 30 years. This is a two-tier system of justice that favors the liberal elites, and it's time not only to reset the scales, because Trump will do that, but it's time to hold the people accountable that were involved in all the cover-ups and involved in creating the two-tier system of justice. And I don't think that this administration is going to achieve its full potential if they don't, in the next 30 days, start terminating people in the Department of Justice and in the FBI and at the Securities and Exchange Commission and the IRS that were involved in all of these schemes. Not only were they covering up for the Bidens, they were, the taxes of Donald Trump was leaked out. They did things to hurt Donald Trump, to interfere in our elections. The 51 intelligence officials who signed that letter, now thank God they've removed their security clearance on day one. That was great. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of instances where these deep state unelected bureaucrats actively engaged in election interference and disinforming the American people. They abuse their office. They abuse their jobs, and they need to be held accountable.
The question to get more often than not, it's House Oversight Committee Chair Jamie Comer. The question for you, question for Jordan over Judiciary. My listeners, my viewers want to know, will you now do something because of Biden's actions yesterday that makes it harder, but will it still be fruitful to do the full investigation and offer up to the DOJ some suggestions about who should be prosecuted, even though the Bidens now are free and clear, the J6 committee are free and clear, Milley and Fauci are free and clear, but the American people want the truth, though, Jamie. Can you still follow through?
Hey, I'm all about it. I've already met with Kash Patel, and I've given Kash Patel a list of people that I think are people of interest in problems in the FBI. So I know that they now have that list. I think Jordan's talked to Pam Bondi. We've communicated. My staff's communicated with her staff. We want to work with them. Whatever they want to do, we'll work with them every step of the way. But for me, accountability is about the deep state, and you got to terminate these people. And we're willing to bring them in for depositions. We'll bring them in for public hearings. We'll do whatever we can to assist Bondi and Patel and Radcliffe and those guys in the judiciary and intelligence offices as to how we can hold these deep state people accountable. I've already spoken with Billy Long. This is going to be the new IRS commissioner.
Good.
We want to do whatever we can. I do, and I know I'm not going to speak for Jim Jordan, but I'm pretty confident he feels the same way.
Yeah, I'm sure he does. It is Jamie Comer. We appreciate the time and the access. In the last couple of minutes we have remaining, we saw the president yesterday at the inauguration literally sit down and sign executive orders at the Oval Office. Wherever he went, he signed executive orders and executive actions. I love that with one executive order, he undid 78 executive actions by Joe Biden in one fell swoop. Jamie, we saw the actual video from El Paso and Del Rio and elsewhere where people on the other side were like, what do you mean I can't get in? He shut down the CBP One app. Mm-hmm. Suddenly the border is closed. It took him 3 seconds to close the border. If you don't mind, give me an overview of the actions he took yesterday. Are you with me? That was like, wow. I mean, that was a wow moment.
Yeah. It should be a wow moment for the media who's been writing for the last year that, the only reason the border's open is because the Republicans didn't pass James Langford's amnesty bill in the Senate. That's bullcrap. All it took was a president who wanted to shut the border down to shut the border down. That border shut down. You think the Texas National Guard doesn't feel like they're going to be able to do their job and secure the border? If you want to keep people from crossing the border, it's not hard. And now you've got the Border Patrol that's going to have the ability to do it. You've got the Texas National Guard. If we have to use the military, but at the very least, they've closed off the checkpoints. I predict more wall will be built. I predict more razor wire will be laid down.
Right.
More drones will be flown over. So all the executive orders dealt with stupidity, dishonesty, and unnecessary and burdensome rules and regulations, from the border to the way our energy is discovered in America. Right. Everything was changed with the swoop of a pen yesterday. It's common sense, and it's going to be a great deal for the American taxpayers.
You got the National Guard and the Border Patrol. Only about 20 seconds left, but they're standing tall today. They now have somebody who's got their back in Washington, don't they? Right.
Yeah, and they have the ability to do a lot to control the border, but they were told to stand down by Joe Biden.
It is House Oversight Committee Chair Jamie Comer. Jamie, thanks for making the time. I appreciate what you do for Kentucky and for the rest of the country. Thanks so much for making time today. Let's do it again soon. Thanks.
All right. Thanks for having me.
All right, brother. We're back after this. Stay right here.